The observation deck of the Crethaxian warship hummed with an energy that transcended mere machinery. Empress Elsa stood at the curved viewport, her crystalline form refracting the distant starlight into patterns that would have driven lesser beings mad. Behind her, 300 of her finest warriors maintained their vigil, each one a perfect specimen of their species, 8 feet tall, armored in biometallic carapaces that had evolved over millennia of conquest. They had come to witness what they believed would be a simple extermination. The human colony on Theta 7 had been marked for absorption into the Empire 3 cycles ago. Intelligence reports indicated a population of 10,000, miners mostly with their families. Soft creatures who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. The Crethaxians had conquered 417 species across 9 galaxies. Humanity would be 418, but protocol demanded observation before assimilation. The Empress always watched the final battle herself. It was tradition. It was respect for the soon-to-be extinct. What she witnessed instead would shatter every assumption her species held about the fragile bipeds from Sol 3. The landing zone was a crater-pocked wasteland on Theta 7's northern continent. The Empress had deployed a single assault battalion, 200 warriors, each capable of leveling a city block. Overkill perhaps, but she preferred efficiency. The human defender appeared alone on the ridge. Single combatant detected, announced Commander Thrax, his voice a series of clicks and harmonics. Probability of threat, negligible. Empress Elsa leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes focusing on the figure. It was male, dressed in what appeared to be salvaged armor. Pieces from a dozen different sources welded and bound together with crude efficiency. In his hands he carried a weapon that her sensors identified as chemically propelled projectile. Launcher, primitive, laughable. His name was Leo. The first wave advanced with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Plasma rifles charged, energy shields shimmering in the pale sunlight of Theta 7's distant star. Leo didn't wait for them to reach optimal firing range. He moved. The Empress's breath caught, if such a thing could be said of a being whose respiratory system operated on principles of quantum exchange. The human dropped from the ridge in a controlled fall, his primitive weapon barking 3 times before he hit the ground. 3 of her warriors collapsed, their shield generators sparking with overload. Impossible, those shields could withstand orbital bombardment. But Leo had shot the power cores, microscopic targets visible only in the split second when the shields cycled their harmonics analysis. Elsa demanded, probability calculations recalibrating. The human is demonstrating reaction speeds that exceed our theoretical models for his species. Leo rolled beneath. A plasma bolt that would have vaporized him came up with a blade, just simple steel, barely technological at all, and drove it through the neck joint of the nearest warrior. The Crethaxian fell, its mandibles clicking in confusion as its life fluid drained into the red dust. Then Leo did something that made every warrior on the observation deck recoil. He smiled. The battle became a dance of impossible precision. Leo moved through her warriors like wind through grass, each motion purposeful, economical. He used their weapons against them, ripping a plasma rifle from dying hands and firing it in the same motion. He anticipated their tactics, their flanking maneuvers, as if he had studied Crethaxian military doctrine his entire life. In truth, he had studied it for 3 months. Ever since the Empire's scout ships had been spotted in the system. Every transmission they'd intercepted, every tactical pattern they'd observed, Leo had consumed it all, memorized it, understood it. Because that's what humans did when they faced extinction. They learned. They adapted. They refused to die quietly. Deploy the second wave, Elsa commanded, her voice carrying an edge that her subordinates had never heard before. Full strength. No holding back. 200 more warriors descended in drop pods that screamed through the atmosphere like falling stars. They surrounded him, energy weapons trained from every angle. There was nowhere to run, no cover, no hope. Leo dropped his stolen rifle, now depleted. He drew 2 more blades from his makeshift armor. One looked like a mining tool, the other a sharpened piece of starship hull, and he charged. What happened next would be studied in Crethaxian military academies for generations to come, taught as a lesson in what happens when an empire grows too comfortable with its dominance. Leo moved like physics was a suggestion rather than a law. He slid under legs, vaulted over backs, used his smaller size as an advantage in ways the larger warriors couldn't counter. When they fired, he was already gone and their plasma bolts struck each other. When they swung their powered halberds, he was inside their reach, his primitive blades finding the gaps in armor that weren't supposed to exist. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His armor was half melted in places. He should have been dead 10 times over, but he kept fighting. Empress, Thrax whispered, his composure finally cracking. He's not just fighting to survive. He's fighting to win. Elsa watched as Leo brought down his 50th warrior, then his 60th. Her hands, delicate crystalline appendages that could crush steel, gripped the viewport edge. How? She asked the void. How is this possible? The answer came from her chief xenobiologist, a scholar who had spent centuries studying conquered species. Empress, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood humanity. Every species we've encountered fights for survival. But humans have something else. Something we classified as primitive emotion but is actually… What? Elsa demanded. Spite, Empress. Pure, distilled, unreasonable spite. He knows he cannot win. He knows his colony cannot be saved. But he will make us pay such a price for this world that we will remember it, that we will fear it, that we will think twice before we come for the next human world. On the battlefield below, Leo stood among the bodies of 143 Crithaxian warriors. The remaining 57 had pulled back, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. He raised his blade, chipped now, barely recognizable as a weapon, and pointed it at the warship above, at Empress Elsa herself. The challenge was clear across species, across evolution, across the void itself. Come down here and face me yourself. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, Empress Elsa felt something she had no word for in her language. Later, she would learn the human term for it: fear. Recall all forces, she commanded, her voice steady despite the revelation cascading through her consciousness. Mark this system as Category Omega. No further military action without council approval. Empress? Thrax's confusion was evident. We can still… No. Elsa turned from the viewport, her form shifting with agitation. We can't, don't you understand? This one human, has shown us what we face if we push them too far. Imagine not one Leo, but a billion. Imagine an entire species that fights like this when cornered. What we witnessed wasn't human potential. It was human restraint. They've been holding back, trying to be civilized, to be diplomatic. She looked back at the lone figure on the battlefield, still standing, still defiant. We wanted to see what humanity could do, Elsa said quietly. Now we know. And may the cosmos have mercy on anyone who makes them show it again. The Crithaxian fleet withdrew from Theta 7 that day. The Council, when presented with Empress Elsa's combat footage, issued an immediate empire-wide directive. Humanity was to be left alone. Not out of respect, not out of diplomacy, out of simple, rational fear. Leo collapsed 17 minutes after the last Crithaxian ship left orbit. The colony's medical team found him unconscious, his body pushed far beyond human limits, sustained only by adrenaline and that peculiar human stubbornness that refused to acknowledge when something was impossible. He would survive. He would heal. And one day he would tell his grandchildren about the day he made an Empress blink. But that's the thing about humans. The thing the Crithaxians learned too late. They don't fight because they think they can win. They fight because someone has to. Because surrender isn't in their vocabulary when it matters most. Because in the vast, cold universe, humanity had learned one lesson that transcended all others. You don't have to be the strongest to win. You just have to be too expensive to conquer. Too dangerous to ignore. Too stubborn to extinguish humanity, fucks, yeah.